I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Sami Kassab, the research analyst from Messari. Sami, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
Definitely, there's a lot to dive into so far this year in crypto that I think a lot of people need a research analyst to be able to follow along with all of the updates with AI merging into blockchain, Bitcoin ecosystem growing beyond just a transfer of value, and so many other small industry use cases which are getting closer to mainstream adoption, I hope, with blockchain technology. I would love to start with just hearing a little bit on your background and what your focus has been with research and leading up to Messari, and then we'll sort of dive into current events.
Yeah, sure. So I'll keep my background pretty brief. Studied aerospace engineering in college. Worked as a design engineer in the aerospace industry for about 4 years. And that consisted on working on the design and development of different gas turbine engines, propulsion engines, helicopter engines. And then I also did a year working on missile and defense systems. So pretty cool stuff, pretty cool hardware to work on. But around 2020, is when COVID hit, and just like everybody else, I had a lot more free time on my hands. I was previously pretty interested in investing. I thought I knew how markets worked until 2020, but that just completely blew me out of the water because, you know, the economy's shutting down. Meanwhile, S&P 500 is just going exponential, right? Mm-hmm. So that really led me down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out, okay, what is monetary policy? What is fiscal policy? What is the Federal Reserve? What is their goal, their objective? Mm-hmm. Came to the conclusion that our generation was doomed. But I found Bitcoin. Bitcoin gave me hope. And then from there, I, discovered the world of other crypto assets. Mm-hmm. And I got the opportunity to kind of work as like a contractor in Messari's community hub about 2 years ago. And so I was writing part-time, and then I got the opportunity to go full-time in the space, and I haven't looked back since.
Incredible. And yeah. I always appreciate when somebody learns more about traditional markets and then they understand Bitcoin more. I think a lot of people that are outside of the industry, they have a hard time understanding Bitcoin because they don't understand what is the opposite, not the exact opposite, but what is the traditional markets, how does that work, and how does Bitcoin differ from that? And I feel like that's the entrance point, which then opens a floodgate of all of the other use cases and sub-industries and everything else. And so I'm curious, you had that Bitcoin event, you learned about it, and then you started getting into all of the deeper weeds of all the other parts of Web3 and AI. Where are your main focuses for your research and what you're most interested in?
Yeah, first of all, I completely agree with you. I think everybody entering the crypto space should start with Bitcoin. I feel like that's a foundation, like an understanding that everybody should have. But so in addition to covering Bitcoin at Messari, I also cover a lot of infrastructure in general. So that includes like your storage networks, your compute networks. I largely am attracted to any type of crypto network that has a hardware aspect to it. And I think that just goes back to my background in hardware. And so, when I say hardware networks, I'm talking of networks similar to like Helium. So like decentralized wireless networks, decentralized sensor networks, such as like HiveMap or Demo. And we can kind of get into this later on, but at Messari, we've kind of coined this term into DePIN, which is decentralized physical infrastructure networks. And so outside of that, in addition to some application infrastructure, like you mentioned, I've also been recently diving into the intersection of crypto and AI.
Yeah. Interesting. And yeah, I want to dive into each of those a little bit. I'd love to start with the physical aspect of it, because you don't often see projects, when people first hear about Bitcoin, they're just like, oh, it's just on my phone, on the internet. There's no physical hardware. You don't need to have anything physical to use it. Which is amazing, but it can also get confusing because when people normally have, paper bill or their credit card in their hand. They're like, the money's on this physical thing. And then it expands beyond that to these whole infrastructure networks, which I'm personally fascinated by, because I do love when there is a hardware aspect to it. And I think people have a better understanding of it when they can actually touch it and feel it. Maybe you can give an example of one of these use cases or one of these companies that you're following and how the physical hardware works with blockchain technology.
Yeah, sure. So first thing I'll start by saying is that nearly every crypto network has a physical aspect. For example, you need to run the nodes, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between needing the nodes for security and then needing physical nodes to provide some other sort of service. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where I draw the line of like what project should be considered a DePIN project and what shouldn't be. And so I think a perfect example to kind of demonstrate the capabilities or like the value of a hardware-based crypto project is Helium. Helium's very widely known, but just to break it down, they're a decentralized wireless protocol. There are two separate networks. They have their IoT network and they have the 5G network that they're currently building, which is their cellular network. So essentially, the protocol's objective is to incentivize individuals to deploy these hotspots. And basically by, you're distributing the CapEx of the network to the supply side with the intention of basically creating this like distributed mesh network in a way. And so Helium has actually created the largest IoT network in the world just by using these crypto incentives. And so this network can be used to actually transfer data over. And so when you think about a future potentially where IoT is actually a thing and you have these smart cities that all have these sensors embedded in them, they need this cheap, cost-effective IoT network to transfer data over. And that's kind of the vision that Helium is going after. But really how blockchain technology plays into this is like, blockchain is really just the like coordination and incentivization layer. And that's key. And that's really what needs to be understood about these networks. And that's really where they shine, right? Is incentivizing people to complete specific actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think the incentivization is key, especially because there's such hard challenges to overcome logistically to build this up to something so big in a decentralized way. I've been hearing about mesh networks for years now, and on paper it sounds amazing. There's a lot of issues with traditional internet or cell phone providers where centralization or the costs and monopolies, oligarchies. How can we build a network for the people, right? But I feel like there's a lot of hurdles to overcome, and I think Starlink might be like a hybrid where it's like, you can it's cross-border, but it's still not decentralized or owned by the people. Where do you actually see the reality of this setting in for people that are sort of tech savvy? They don't have to be Web3 geniuses, but like they could use potentially an alternative to these centralized internet providers. Is that actually going to become a reality in the near future?
Yeah, I think we're not there yet, but we're getting close. So, for example, Helium, the core team, which is called Nova Labs, they're the ones who are actually developing the network. They've actually created a mobile carrier. So they've partnered with T-Mobile to provide a service to individuals where, so you can like go on your phone and you can actually see like, you can be connected to the Helium network. Mm-hmm. But essentially how this works is that when you're not in range of like a Helium node, you actually will then leverage the T-Mobile's network. Mm-hmm. And so that's really how I see this progressing. It's going to be like a combination of leveraging like traditional infrastructure with decentralized infrastructure until the decentralized infrastructure actually grows large enough or is stable enough to actually be able to accommodate a lot of these users. But really, like the key reason I see why people would use these decentralized infrastructure networks just comes down to cost, right? Most people don't really care about decentralization at the end of the day. But what's great about these decentralized networks is they actually have like superior unit economics. So they reduce the capital expenditure, they reduce the operational expenditure. And so through that, they're able to deliver lower costs or more cost savings to the end user. And so that's kind of what I see driving adoption at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, for regular people, they just look at, okay, what's a better deal for me? And as long as it's not too much more complex, then I'm in for the cheaper option. And from what I understand with the Helium and some of these other decentralized networks is, in a way, you can contribute, whether it's your bandwidth or some kind of time, effort, that you're actually earning. So that's reducing your cost. You can actually earn tokens or something else.
Yeah, exactly. A large portion of these decentralized networks, when you think about like decentralized storage, compute, or bandwidth, it's leveraging idle resources or resources that you already have that you're looking to monetize, right? So, for example, if you have a gaming computer with a couple of high-end GPUs, let's say like RTX 3090, if you're at work and those GPUs are just sitting idly, not being put to use, then you're kind of missing out on an opportunity where there are some decentralized compute networks that are emerging to where you can contribute those GPUs, and it's a very passive activity, and you're earning without really putting in any additional effort, right? So that is like a key aspect of a lot of these infrastructure networks, and that is part of the reason why they're able to achieve like lower costs than centralized providers.
Yeah, great point, Sami. And I feel like there's huge inefficiencies across most industries with technology. Pivoting slightly, thinking about automotive industry and cars, and how cars are idle for 80 to 90% of their life, just sitting in your garage or sitting in the parking lot. I feel like tapping into a Web3 network or somewhere where they can monetize that would create a huge, much more efficient for many IoT devices. And I feel like over the next coming years, that's going to become a reality.
Yeah, I mean, something that Vitalik said a long time ago was that if you remove these centralized intermediaries, you just drastically increase efficiency of a lot of these networks. And so if you think about something like Uber, if you removed them, you're removing this intermediary that's just taking a cut, right? So if you replaced Uber with like a decentralized protocol and you allowed these like decentralized front ends to emerge on top, similar to what we see in like decentralized social, where you have like the decentralized social graph layer and then a bunch of like decentralized front ends emerge. That's kind of how I see it playing out for like, real world networks. And these are actually being built. So there are decentralized rideshare protocols, just to name a few. There's one called Teleport. There's one, I believe it's called Drive. And then there's also decentralized food delivery protocols being developed as well. And I think there's one called Nosh. And so that is really the vision at one point, is to turn these centralized Web 2 apps into protocols to increase efficiency, lower costs on the end user, and really just increase fairness overall.
Great point, Sami. And I'm going to look into those companies as well. And there's one that I've been following, I've had on the show a few times, called Peak Network as well. From what I understand, they're building AI with IoT devices, and the end vision is to have cars that are automated, can drive themselves, have their own bank account, can transfer to other cars, the gas stations, everything sort of communicates through their IoT devices. And I feel like we're getting there, but one of the main hurdles, which I think's made huge achievements this year towards that direction, is AI technology. And we've been working on it for many years, but I think reality set in for people with ChatGPT at the beginning of this year. And I know that you've also been researching AI, and it looks like it's on an exponential curve to just keep growing faster and faster. Maybe you can talk about your research in AI, where the achievements that we've seen this year and the projections that you see moving forward?
Yeah, like you said, ChatGPT was really that wake up moment for a lot of people about how disruptive and how powerful AI really is going to be. And I think the reason for that is because ChatGPT was the first consumer facing AI product, right? And so I'm kind of waiting for crypto to have that moment as well, where we have a real consumer facing product where people can kind of realize, okay, I see what's being built in this industry. There's real value being created here. So that's just kind of a side note. But yeah, so ever since ChatGPT really took off, there's just been this realization among pretty much every company about the need to adopt an AI strategy. And what that's caused is just this increased competition for the resources that are underpinning AI. So actually, before I dive into that, because that's one of the use cases that I see emerging between the intersection of crypto and AI, there are, a number of liquid AI and crypto assets right now. The majority of them I see as vaporware. I don't think they actually provide real value. In a way, I kind of see them as being like a fun toy. While there are some projects who are building like necessary infrastructure, such as like decentralized marketplaces for AI agents or for machine learning models, I think the real use cases are still being developed. And that's what I was researching. I can basically group the use cases into two broad categories. You have one category where crypto can be used to address existing challenges in the AI sector. And so that can include alleviating the GPU shortage, which I was touching on earlier with this increased demand for everybody to train this ML model. We have this major GPU shortage. And so crypto can actually be used here if you leverage these decentralized compute networks that tap into idle compute resources that are distributed all over the world. You could help mitigate that supply and demand mismatch by bringing a lot of GPUs online for others to leverage. So like that's one use case there. Crypto can also be used to help combat against deep fakes. You can use it to build these networks that can incentivize collaboration. You can incentivize data collection. And then the second category is really how AI can help crypto. And in a way, I see AI as accelerating the adoption of crypto infrastructure and then also unlocking new possibilities with what you can do on chain. So I'm happy to dive into wherever you think is interesting.
Yeah, no, we touched on the first half there a little bit, and sort of made me think about all these people that have these graphics cards, especially ones that they were using to mine Bitcoin, trying to find some lucrative way to profit off of their graphics cards. And the competition, excuse me, the competition gets stronger. The graphics cards, it makes it harder to actually mine. But hey, there's all of these other use cases where this graphics card could be put towards helping protect this infrastructure network or this AI or other ways to monetize. And I feel like what you're talking about with AI is going to open up 10 other doors for idle technology that maybe once was used to mine Bitcoin, be able to monetize from other aspects.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually see this happening when you look at large publicly listed crypto miners. And so a lot of them had high-end GPUs that they were using to mine Ethereum. And what they actually did was they pivoted towards creating this high performance computing side of the business. So, a lot of them are still mining Bitcoin, but now they're also these high performance compute providers. And a lot of them are looking into supplying the GPUs that they have to some of these decentralized infrastructure networks or decentralized compute networks. And so, for example, Akash is a decentralized cloud, and there are some miners who have actually come out and say, yeah, we are going to be providing some of our resources to this network. And so it is a viable use case, whether it's for decentralized rendering, decentralized machine learning, or any other compute workload that emerges in the near future.
I'm glad that you mentioned Akash there, Sami, because I have spoken with them before, and I think the infrastructure that's holding Web 2 together right now, including most of the crypto projects, dApps, even nodes for Ethereum and such, is hosted, most of it, on Amazon or some other centralized provider that, if anything happened or if they wanted, they could just flip the switch and most of the servers of the internet would be shut off. And I feel like these decentralized networks that are able to store servers, applications in a decentralized way is the future. But I think what we went back to at the beginning about, at the end of the day, it's sort of about a cost benefit. Is it similarly difficult, but it costs a lot more? I'm not going to use it. I'm only going to use the decentralized one if it's cheaper or there's incentives over using Amazon. I'm curious on your research on that and where you actually see that switch to a decentralized infrastructure actually hosting not just Web3 apps, but like the internet. I feel like we're far away from that still.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I think we're really far away from that, because convincing a business or an organization to move their infrastructure off of this reliable Web 2 provider to this Web 3 provider is it's going to be a difficult like thing to convince them for. One thing that these decentralized clouds struggle with right now is really reliability. So if you look at the existing providers, they can actually guarantee like 99.99% uptime. That's not really the case with these decentralized providers, right? Because you are leveraging these individuals who don't have these SLA agreements, right? So it's not as reliable for running these critical workloads, but that's not to say that there can be, methods in the future that arise that basically make these networks a lot more reliable. One thing I'd just like to mention here is that previously a lot of these distributed compute networks were only providing CPU resources. And this was a resource that was largely abundant in the existing market, right? GPUs are now the in-demand resource, or the resource that everybody needs, right? And I think these decentralized compute networks have really been handed an opportunity on a golden platter, to where if they can basically source these GPUs, offer them at a reasonable cost, then you could actually potentially see these Web 2 machine learning researchers or small to mid-sized companies actually jump through all the hurdles of crypto, go through all the onboarding process to leverage a service or a use case that they actually need. And that's one critique that I can make about crypto, is that there really isn't a use case that has spread wide to general society. So I think decentralized compute has the opportunity to actually attract a lot of individuals just by offering a service that the existing market doesn't have. And to me, that's going to be scarce GPUs at a reasonable cost.
Great insight, Sami. And we've talked about a lot of different industries here that they have a great foundation built, and nothing is, Rome wasn't built overnight. All of this stuff is going to come to fruition, but it might take a while. I'm curious on your thoughts on a more short-term basis, say throughout the next 6 to 10 months, moving into 2024. Is there anything in your research showing, some breakthroughs in Web3 or AI and what we might see come out next that's usable? Yeah,
that's a good question. So within AI, I see a few use cases that we could actually see in the near future within around 6 to 12 months. The first one is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with AI agents. They're essentially these autonomous entities which are basically like an LLM, like a large language model communicating with a large language model. There are these entities that can go out and complete these automated tasks for you. There's this narrative that these entities will need to use these decentralized payment and infrastructure rails, just because they're not humans. They can't go out and KYC and get a bank account to transact with one another. And so within the 6 to 12 months, I would actually predict that we see a lot of these AI agents actually start to move on chain to leverage some of these crypto infrastructure rails. I think what we'll also see is on chain, you'll start to see smart contracts gain the ability to query or inference AI models. And that's going to just broadly expand the design scope, right? Because now you allow smart contracts the ability to make predictions and decisions based on real-time on-chain data rather than like a fixed set of rules, right? So now these smart contracts actually become a lot more intelligent, and they can more compete with, you know, Web 2 applications. And so that's two entities, or those are two verticals within AI that I kind of see taking off. And then, you know, decentralized storage is another sector that I'm keeping a close eye on. I think decentralized storage is the closest Web3 infrastructure vertical to being commercialized. I've spoken with a lot of storage providers, specifically in the Filecoin ecosystem, that are storing data for research institutions and universities. And so I think the trajectory there is looking optimistic. And, you know, I think more small to medium-sized businesses potentially will look into leveraging these decentralized storage networks, largely due to, you know, the increased efficiency, but also the decreased costs that they offer.
Wow, incredible. And I'm definitely looking forward to the day when smart contracts become even smarter. I know that there are a lot of limitations to them right now, but they are a beautiful thing. And incorporating AI and AI agents, I feel like would be a huge leap forward. So I won't hold you to a date on the prediction, but I'm looking forward to when and if that happens. So thank you for the insights, Sami. What is the best way? You know, we don't have a lot of time left, but is there a place on Messari or personally that we can follow you and look for these updates and follow along with the latest trends in Web3?
Yeah, I would say that you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at old_Samster, or just type my name, Sami Kassab, on Twitter, and that should pop up. And I'll also say to follow Messari's Twitter as well to keep up with some of the updates that we'll be releasing this summer. And that's at Messari Crypto as well. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Sami. I really do appreciate the time, the insights into all of these innovative technologies. It's amazing what's happening in our world right now, and I love that you're at the forefront of it and you just have so much knowledge on it. So would love to have you back on the show sometime when there's more updates and there's more to speak about. So let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Yeah, would love to be back on, and really enjoyed chatting with you in general, man.